It started with a scream, sharp, human, real. Inside the quiet corridors of Sealand, the audience long gone and the lights dimmed. A splash echoed off the concrete walls. Then another. Then Keltie Byrne, just 20 years old, a lifeguard, a dancer, a university student, and a seasoned swimmer, was suddenly fighting for her life. "She's in the pool," someone shouted. In those chaotic first seconds, no one could make sense of what was happening. Keltie had dropped a bucket near the edge. Reaching for it, she slipped. That's when the water came alive. Tilikum, 13 feet long and weighing over 12,000 pounds, lunged from below. His teeth clamped around her foot, dragging her into the water like a rag doll. Haida the second and Nootka the fourth circled fast, black and white blurs moving beneath the surface like predators in a storm. "She's not coming up," a coworker cried. Keltie's arms thrashed. Her voice, high and terrified, broke through the air. "Help me, please help." But the whales didn't let go. Again and again they pulled her under. One would release her just long enough for another to take hold. It wasn't like the shows. It wasn't rehearsed or controlled. This was something else. Something primal. Staff rushed to the sides, screaming her name. "Use the net, bang the gates, make noise, throw the food in, distract them." Nothing worked. Keltie's training, her speed, her strength. It all meant nothing now. The water was no longer her friend. It was a trap. And the animals she'd once danced beside had turned deadly. One moment her head broke the surface, eyes wide with terror. The thence gone, the water foamed white, then red. "We need to get in there," someone yelled, but no one could. No human could survive that pool now. A trainer sobbed into her hands. Another froze, unable to move. A third ran to the phone, trembling fingers dialing for help. But it was too late. Minutes felt like hours. And then nothing, just the quiet lapping of water against the side of the pool. No more screams, no more splashes, just silence. "She's gone," someone whispered. Tilikum hovered just below the surface, his dorsal fins slicing through the water like a blade. Haida and Nootka swam slowly beside him, calm now. Too calm. It didn't make sense. Keltie wasn't reckless. She wasn't afraid of them. She loved those whales, trusted them. Just days earlier, she was laughing beside the tank, tossing fish with one hand and spinning to music with the other. "They know me," she said with a grin. "I'm part of their world." But now she was gone. The pool was quiet, and beneath that still surface, something darker was stirring. And it started long before the scream, before the slip, before Keltie ever met Tilikum. "Good night, boys," Keltie whispered, waving at the dark water. She lingered for a second, smiling at the glass wall of the tank. 3 massive shadows hovered beneath the surface. Tilikum, Haida the second, and Nootka the fourth. They didn't move, didn't splash, just stared. Their eyes locked on hers, unblinking. Then she turned and walked away, her dance shoes dangling from her hand. Just hours before the tragedy, Keltie had been full of light. She'd been rehearsing for her university dance performance, laughing with friends, barefoot on the wet concrete. Her hair was still damp from the rain when she fed the whales that afternoon. Tilikum had surfaced slow and smooth, brushing against the pool's edge as she leaned in. "Look at this guy," she joked. "He's just a big, soggy puppy." Her coworker chuckled, but added, "Still wouldn't turn my back on him." Keltie shrugged. "He's never hurt me. He just wants attention." That was the thing about her. She saw through fear. Where others saw danger, she saw a soul. But behind the scenes, the whales weren't the happy performers the crowd saw at shows. Not even close. The tank was barely bigger than a backyard pool. Most nights, the whales floated still, side by side, like submarines in sleep mode. No open ocean, no stimulation, no escape. And Tilikum, the largest of them all, had the least space. He was often bullied by the others, scratched and rammed during feeding time. He bore the marks on his skin. "They've shown aggression before," one staff member had warned during training. "That's why no one swims with them." Keltie wasn't even a trainer. Her job was cleanup, safety, assisting with feeding. But she cared. She stayed after hours, helped with maintenance, sang to them when no one was around. On camera, she looked so peaceful beside them. This tall, graceful girl tossing fish to three apex predators, like it was nothing. But the warning signs were there. The aggression, the stress, the boredom that twisted wild minds. And still she believed. They're just lonely, she'd once said to a coworker. They don't want to hurt anyone. But loneliness does strange things, especially to intelligent, trapped animals. The night before her death, something shifted. Tilikum didn't surface when she said goodnight. He hovered just below, eyes locked on hers, body still. Haida circled slowly behind. Nootka's fin barely broke the surface. It was quiet, too quiet, creepy tonight, another staffer had whispered. They're acting on, but no one could have guessed what was about to happen. Not even Keltie. She danced past their tank, carefree. And behind the glass, three massive minds, stressed to the breaking point, watched her go. And by morning, one innocent mistake would awaken something no one could control. It looked like a simple blue tank, harmless, like a hotel swimming pool. But behind the gates at Sealand, that water held pressure. Years of it. 3 killer whales, 1 cramped enclosure, and no way out. Tilikum, the giant among them, was over 22 feet long and weighed 6 tons. Yet somehow he was the outcast. The 2 females, Haida the second and Nootka the fourth, dominated him. They raked him with their teeth, leaving bloody lines on his back and side. Trainers often found him floating still, his body covered in fresh wounds. He's getting torn up again, one staffer muttered during a morning check. He just takes it, another replied. Doesn't fight back. Despite being the biggest, Tilikum wasn't in charge. He wasn't even respected. He was tolerated barely. The tank was no sanctuary. It was a cage. Former trainers had warned the higher-ups. They're too smart for this space. They're not performing. They're acting out. We're pushing them too far. But Sealand was small. Money was tight. The shows brought in crowds. And those warnings, they faded into the background. No one wanted to believe the whales could snap. But orcas aren't just big dolphins. They're strategic hunters. In the wild, they use teamwork to trap prey. They communicate, they stalk, they learn. And at Sealand, that intelligence had nowhere to go. No waves, no space, no escape. Tilikum started mimicking the others, lunging, snapping, ramming the pool glass. One former trainer said it with a shaky voice. It wasn't sadness, it was something waiting. That day when Keltie slipped, it wasn't chaos, it was quiet calculation. The whales didn't panic. They didn't fight over her. They moved with eerie purpose. Haida blocked her path. Nootka circled behind. And Tilikum, the one she trusted, grabbed her. They're sharing her, a staff member gasped. They're taking turns. It wasn't an accident, it wasn't confusion. It was a hunt. And the tank was too small for her to get away. Nets were thrown in. Metal poles banged against gates. Buckets of fish were dumped. Nothing broke their focus. Keltie, let her go, someone screamed from above. But the whales weren't listening. They were locked in something older, something deeper. The aggression that trainers had seen in flashes now burned fully into the open. Tilikum, beaten down for years, now held the power, and he didn't let go. The attack didn't last seconds. It lasted over an hour. Staff watched helplessly as the whales dragged her under again and again. When she surfaced, she reached for the ledge, only to be pulled back into the blue. They won't stop, one worker cried. They didn't. The tank that once held applause now held horror. And as the final ripple faded across the surface, the truth became impossible to deny. Something had broken in that pool, and it would never be repaired. Screams echoed through the concrete halls. Trainers sprinted to the tank, buckets clanged, whistles blew. But inside the water, there was no order, only violence. Keltie, let her go, someone shouted, voice cracking with desperation. She surfaced, eyes wide, gasping, then vanished again beneath a wall of black and white. A massive tail slammed down, sending waves crashing over the edge. Another set of jaws clamped her arm, then her leg. They're playing, one horrified witness whispered, but not to her. The whales didn't respond to hand signals. They didn't come for food. The emergency nets were tossed in, then ignored. Trainers stood frozen. Some cried, some yelled, but none could stop what was happening. The water boiled with chaos, blood mixed with bubbles. Keltie's body was pulled in circles, surfacing, sinking, surfacing again. Her hand reached out once, just once, then vanished beneath the foam. They wouldn't let her go, a staff member later said. They just kept taking turns. Minutes passed, then nearly an hour, then more. It felt like time had stopped, like the whales weren't done. And then, silence. The pool stilled. The surface shimmered in the low light, darkened with blood. Keltie's body was gone. The whales floated slowly now, their eyes dull, their bodies calm. Tilikum hovered near the center, his dorsal fin casting a long, crooked shadow. She's gone, someone whispered, voice hollow. Outside, Sealand's gates were locked. No one saw what happened inside, only the aftermath. But news spread fast. Shock turned to outrage. Keltie Byrne was bright, beloved, just 21. She wasn't reckless, she wasn't careless. She trusted the whales, treated them like old friends. Her death shook the world. Within months, Sealand shut down. Permanently. The tanks were drained, the show stopped, but the story wasn't over. Tilikum, already haunted, was sold to SeaWorld, in Orlando. There his story grew darker. Over the years, 2 more people would die in his presence, including trainer Don Brancho. And the world asked, why does this keep happening? Keltie's family never blamed the whale. They're wild, her brother said. They never should have been there in the first place. Experts agreed. Orcas aren't toys, they aren't performers. They're apex predators, meant to roam oceans, not float listless in steel pools. But for years people clapped, cheered, took photos, and beneath it all the whales waited. In the wild, killer whales swim up to 100 miles a day. They dive deep. They hunt in silence. They grieve. In tanks they circle, they float, they break, and sometimes they snap. Sealand's pool sits empty now, but its silence still speaks. A warning, a wound, a truth we didn't want to see. Sealand's pool sits empty now, but its silence still speaks. A warning, a wound, and a truth we didn't want to see. So before we applaud the next animal act, we must ask, at what cost?